All right, it looks like we're live here. We'll give everyone just a few minutes to get set up, get buckled in here for the next 45 minutes to an hour. We have a lot to cover. There's a lot happening in this country right now that you're definitely not going to hear on the news. I do not know if it's on the news because I stopped watching the news, especially during election season with all that's happening overseas. We're just simply not getting the stories. I'm not seeing our live here. It's telling me we're live, but I'm not seeing it on my phone. I wonder if I've been that much of a bad boy. YouTube. It says I'm live. Good. It says we have excellent stream, but I'm not seeing it on my phone. I'm going to have to pursue. There we are. Okay. All right. We are live. We'll give everybody here about a minute and a half or so to get going. We're just going to chit-chat until then. Lots of stuff going on, guys. Wow, the economy is still moving along. I have an entire page of election irregularities, shall we say, YouTube. Before we get started here, I have had 3 episodes removed from YouTube. I'm more than certain that right now there's someone in San Francisco watching this, or LA in the content office, watching this episode right now. So we're going to be a little bit more delicate, I suppose, but we're not going to hide the truth. If they kick me off, they kick me off. You can always find me on Rumble under the Rice Report. There are 2 Rice Reports. There's always a phony something or rather for everything out there for me. There's a fake Twitter, fake everything. Twitter, I'm EA_Rice. I will be broadcasting on Twitter the moment they kick me off on YouTube, because Twitter will replace YouTube when it's all said and done. When it comes to content streaming, that is certainly on its way to happening. Elon Musk announced that today. So I am on Rumble at the moment. You can find me on iHeartRadio, Spotify, all over the place. So if you're driving to work in the morning, you don't have time to watch the video. This isn't a video only broadcast. We actually do this here on multiple voice platforms. You can go to Podbeam, Spotify, iHeart, YouTube, Rumble. We're all over the place, and we will probably not be here much longer. That is not of my doing. I'm not going to silence myself. I will be a little bit more discreet with my language here on YouTube, but I will not bend a knee to any tyrant trying to hide the truth from people, regardless of whether or not you want to acknowledge that it's the truth. YouTube, you are not the truth makers. You are not the fact checkers of the world. You are a platform that's granted grace by the government to be a town hall, a town square, for us to be able to voice and exercise our First Amendment right of free speech, which includes speech that you don't like. So we will be more delicate. I'll be a little bit softer in the medical arena. I know that that's an area of particular concern, probably with mounting litigation, but we'll certainly avoid that for a while to keep us on here, because I don't do this YouTube for people who've been following me for 3 or 4 years. They know most of these things. I do this to be able to reach new people so they can understand what's happening in this country as we speak, which is currently a calamity. All right, it's 8:03. Let's get this thing started. My name is Eric Rice. This is the Rice Report. Thank you so much for coming here tonight at this late live chat, this live broadcast. Busy times in the world, busy times in my life right now, launching a new company and things like that. So just getting a little break here in the evening, getting kids to dance and getting them dinner and all those types of things in the middle of work. Great to be here with y'all. It is October 29th of the year of our Lord 2024. 8:03 p.m. Central Time, and I thank you all for being here. So let's hop into it. As you know, if you've been here, if you're new to this show, this live stream, thank you so much for coming. God bless you. This is a welcome place for free thinking, free thought, and free speech, even if it's on YouTube. And we are here basically to be able to share information and news that the news is not covering. Our news systems, our entire news networks have been corrupted basically since 2014, when Barack Obama passed a law called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, basically allowing American news outlets, which are funded by taxpayers, by the way. Almost every bill that passes through Washington, D.C. includes funding for the media. And the media does not have to follow the same rules as everyone else. They can actually lie as much as they want. It's totally legal. It'll drive ratings, and they get to make money off advertisers. Meanwhile, truth-telling journalists actually have an increasingly difficult time making money and an increasingly difficult time getting the truth out to you, because we continue to get warnings and we have to go to re-education programming here at YouTube in order to get back on YouTube. I don't know how long this platform will last or how long I'll be here, but I will be here as long as they allow me to. I will not bend a knee. I will not apologize for sharing the truth or my opinions on the truth, for that matter. This is the United States of America. We are allowed to exercise our First Amendment right to free speech and free religion. So we will continue to tell the truth here as long as they allow us to be here. And cordially, I'd like to thank you for giving me a platform. But at the same time, I would love for you to get back to the American dream, YouTube. You are an American company who should be following American laws, since you have grace granted to you by Congress as a town square where people are allowed to exercise their right to free speech and creation of content. There are plenty of lies on YouTube. You can find them almost on every single front page, and they seem to have a longer shelf life than episodes that declare the truth. Nonetheless, we shall begin. This show will always go through the three things that they don't want you to hear about: money, politics, and religion. No one wants you to talk about those three things, and look where we are. Most of the country is broke. The entire country is confused politically, and almost all the country has been desensitized to the actual existence of God and the living Holy Spirit in your heart granted to you by Jesus Christ. So we will always talk about those three things because they're the most important things in your life. You have to have money to sustain. You have to have a good political system to be able to continue to make money, and you need God in your life to be a better person and to experience eternity. So we'll go through all those three things, and we will begin with money today. And there's a lot of things happening in the market right now that are just not being talked about. I actually watched about an hour and a half of mainstream media earlier today, and nowhere on there did I see, and again, this is not a knock. It was only an hour and a half, okay? First of all, in times like this, within an hour and a half, I should have heard this number posted across the screen at least 5 or 6 times, but gold broke yet another all-time high. It's now trading at $2,790. We are $10 away from $2,800 gold. In the last 5 years, almost every traditional analyst who makes their living going on CNBC has told us that gold will never break 2,200. It won't break 2,000. It's about to break 3,000 in the next month. This is, as I said in the last episode, this is the canary in the coal mine. The canary is stopping to sing because there's poisonous gases in the actual coal mine itself, the markets. The markets are fluctuating. They are moving all over the place. New all-time highs in the stock market correlated with new all-time highs in gold. We're about to see another new all-time high in Bitcoin. And more importantly, the economists are starting to do, independent economists who don't make their living on CNBC, who make their living on the internet, which is the only place that'll accept them because they're telling the truth. Guys like E.J. Antoni are putting out new economic studies right now that are showing that during the Biden-Harris administration, and by the way, that is the Biden-Harris administration. She should never be excused for the poor performance as VP. She had every bit of a vote in everything that happened. She told us she was the last person in the room for every decision. She is at fault for this. A new study came out by EJ today, basically saying that Americans have lost $2.5 trillion due to inflation over the last 4 years. Now, people will say, well, that's not true because my 401k is up. And that's true. That's a very good debate. However, the buying power of your 401k has been completely eroded by 20 to 25% inflation. And that is, by the way, that's 20 to 25% inflation over the last 4 years. So it's not month over month, year over year. That's over the last 4 years. But that doesn't include fuel or food. Remember, they removed that in 2020, at the end of the beginning of 2021, so that they didn't have to be as embarrassed. Now, you throw in fuel and food, you're looking at 37 to 39% inflation. So while you may have made 21 to 25% returns in your 401k, the buying power of the value of that 401k has been eroded by almost 40%. So $2.5 trillion of wealth has been eviscerated from retirement funds throughout the country. That is a very good study, by the way. All of you should look into E.J. Antoni's economic research that he did on this. It's fantastic. The stock market itself is a great story for people because it's the illusion. Oh, my retirement account went up, but you can't buy as much with it, so it doesn't actually matter. What's happened with inflation over the last 4 years has now extended retirement 6 years. So Americans have lost 6 years of their best years of their life, quote unquote, from retirement due to inflation, regardless of what happened in the stock market. Because as the stock market has thrived under false pretense being pumped up by, things like the government plunge protection fund that just continues to pump money into the market, just like China's doing. China just authorized another $140 billion to pump into their stock market so that their citizens don't realize that they're bankrupt as well. This is what's happening in the world. 6 years have been added to your retirement because most portfolios for retirement, because not everyone is super sophisticated and not everyone follows this show to find alternative assets and other ways to make money. Most people have their money in a 60-40 allocation, 60% in equities. Those equities are broken down into large cap, mid cap, small cap, high risk. And then you have 40% allocation into bonds, and those bonds are laddered in the same direction. Government bonds to junk bonds. You have a big allocation. I used to do this for a living, so I know exactly what happens. The 60% of your portfolio has done really well. You've done really well in equities. It's fake, it's false, it's going to crumble eventually, but you've done really well. On the other hand, bonds tell the real story of an economy and a market, and the bonds have been getting crushed. I called 4 years ago that we were approaching a massive sovereign bond crisis, along with a credit crisis, and this is now boiling to the surface. It's good to know things ahead of time, but it's good to be prepared. It's even better to be prepared. So while we've watched this tremendous run in the stock market, new all-time highs every couple of weeks, what the news isn't telling you is how bad the bond market is. Now, my last episode, which was deleted from YouTube, I explained to you the fact that there's a problem happening right now. We just had interest rate cuts from the Federal Reserve, so rates went down at the Federal Reserve, yet mortgage rates went up 0.8%. So the average 30-year fixed mortgage is almost around 7% right now. That's a big problem for people trying to buy a home, and it's such a big problem, in fact, that home sales we're looking at the worst year for home sales since 1995 per the Epoch Times. Since 1995. So how is this happening? Well, the Fed funds rate dropped, but no one wants our bonds. Nobody wants U.S. Treasuries. So the way that bonds work is a triple beam. You have price and you have yield. So when the price goes down, the yield goes up. I don't know if I have that in the right way. I'm looking in the camera. I don't do that often. It's a triple beam. So if the yields are going up, which they are massively, that means the price of those bonds is declining in coordination. And the reason that bond prices decline is because there's no demand. As I've talked about many times, our auctions are 65, maybe 70% on a good auction of our treasuries being purchased by foreign entities, which is a terrible structure. We should get rid of a Federal Reserve altogether, stop selling our debt to foreign nations, and be self-sufficient. We have all the resources, all the people, all the intelligence, and all the technology in America that we'll ever need, and we should be utilizing that day by day. But I digress. So we've watched this decline in bonds, which has increased the yield of those bonds, pushing up mortgage prices. Again, 1995 will be the last year, going back all the way to 1995. This will be the worst year since 95 for existing new home sales. This is really bad stuff for the economy. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but somebody has to do it. It can't be puppy dogs and rainbows and CNBC all day. And then all of a sudden, just like in 2008, I was in the markets in 2008. I was watching the television when people go, wait, hold on a second. What's happening? What's happening? The market just plummeted. It just keeps falling. That's coming again. They're not going to tell you ahead of time, and they'll ban shows like this for people who are warning you. They don't ban me for my financial information, by the way. They don't ban that. They would rather I just sat here and talked about money all day, and probably so would I. It would make my life a lot easier because the other topics bring some grief to my life, and that's okay because God has my back. God has your back. He's going to get us all through this at the end. But I think it's important to note this stock market run, which has created the illusion of a more prosperous retirement, has been completely devoured by inflation and poor bond performance, which has actually added 6 years to your retirement based on buying power. Stop thinking in terms of dollars. Start thinking in terms of buying power. This is why Bitcoin was invented. It's why people are into it now. That's why $4.5 trillion in ETFs just flowed directly into Bitcoin today, driving the price up to almost an all-time high. But the stock market is more concentrated than ever. In my 7 steps to an economic collapse video, which you can find right after this because I did delete the one in the middle, you can find out that there are 7 basic economic indicators that have all been triggered in this economy. And one of them is an overweighting of the stock market, which is now 7 times more overweighted than it was during the dot-com era. Tech stocks are outperforming the S&P 500, also a commonality with the dot-com bubble. So we have commonalities with the year 2000, with the dot-com bubble burst. We have many parallels with 2008. And today is actually the anniversary of 1929 stock market crash. So many things are happening right now, just crisscrossing and correlating all over the place. But job openings tells the big story. I talked about this last episode, which I'll repeat again, was deleted by YouTube. Job openings are down below their pre-pandemic levels. So we have less job openings now than we did just before a black swan event where they plummeted even further. Only 7.4 million. That's 400,000. We're losing 400,000 job openings month over month in this country. That is a tremendous amount of job openings that don't exist. This is going to be one of the toughest job markets that you've ever seen or ever experienced. And it's developing very quickly now. The snowball is definitely picking up momentum down the side of the hill. Donald Trump stock, DJT, the Trump media stock today, was halted multiple times for trading. 16 million shares exchanged hands. You know, these types of things don't happen in a free and fair market. Stocks are allowed to thrive or die in a free market. They aren't halted by authorities who say, whoa, 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 you can't trade this much in this stock. This happens all the time, guys. All the time. It's not just DJT. There are many stocks, GameStop, another thing. You're going to see this happen in silver. You're going to probably, the only place you can't see this happen is Bitcoin. That's the only place you can't see this happen, unless Coinbase, who houses all the Bitcoin for the ETFs, which is a tremendous mistake. I don't trust Coinbase and you shouldn't either. However, the only way that they can halt Bitcoin trading is to be able to shut down Coinbase, who is beholden to the SEC. They are a know your client SEC organization. Now, if that does happen, you can still trade Bitcoin. It's a free and fair market. It's decentralized, run by the entire world, not a small few who have their interest in mind. Keep that in mind. Markets will move to a decentralized state in a free world. They will move into a more centralized environment in a tyrannical world in which we live in, where stocks like Trump stock, who was making a great run, tons of volume in the stock being traded, it was halted multiple times. These should end up becoming lawsuits for investors. I don't own any DJT. The only thing I own in the stock market is the VIX, UVX, and the VIX. The only things that I own. Now, if you do own DJT, the SEC is absolutely interfering with an upward trend run in the stock. And it doesn't do it on the downside. They certainly allow their buddies to short it like crazy and push the price down. But once it starts running up and you can make money, they'll halt trading multiple times, which they've done today. Interest rates on used car market is always a telling indicator. You can find out what happens. When our economy was sort of booming, used cars are a bit more expensive. When people have more discretionary money in their pocket, they pay a little bit more for vehicles. You know, this is America. People like having nice cars. I've been waiting to buy a new truck for a long time because I've seen what's coming, and I can tell you what's coming is already here. We are now in the 26th consecutive month of a decline in used car prices, along with lowering interest rates. Interest rates on used car and new car loans are dropping. It's around 8.3% for a used car, around 7.2% for a new car. Nonetheless, these are indicators of a falling economy again. And as far as the finances go for today, the money goes for today, because really a bulk of what we're going to talk about is the election and what's happening right now, because it's a complete calamity. And if this is aggravating you, you haven't paid attention over the last few years. I'm going to go through some game theory of what might happen after November 5th, which there's no way in the world we're going to know who's president on November 5th. Just throw that out the window. It's not going to happen. They've already made that very clear. But when it comes to the economy, you have to start looking into Bitcoin. You absolutely have to. Now, I know that there's a ton of altcoiners that'll tell you that their coin's going to make it and theirs is not. I mean, I have all the videos. I can show you all day long. These things are capitulating. Even if I won't mention the names because they have funded armies of shills that attack you for talking about them. But one of the biggest ones kind of admitted today that the deals that they keep promoting to the community are simply just for press releases to drive volume to make themselves richer. And another one of these big altcoins that has a lot of social media presence, a lot of marketing out there. They've already said that they're pretty much going to be converting from their own layer 1 into a layer 2 for Bitcoin. This is what's going to happen because it is the only truly decentralized platform in the world. With a $1.4 trillion market cap, it's now larger than Berkshire Hathaway. $4.5 trillion from investors flowed directly into Bitcoin through ETFs today. BRICS has now announced that 4 of the BRICS nations are going to be funding nuclear projects to build nuclear-powered facilities to mine Bitcoin. I don't think that sounds like something people are going to not use in the future. One of the top 5 items at the last BRICS summit meeting was having Bitcoin on the agenda to use Bitcoin to circumvent U.S. sanctions for international trade. These are not things to be ignored. These are not things to be pushed off to the side. If you want to own altcoins and gamble and play the degenerate game of gambling, I have no problem with that. It's a free nation. You can do it. But don't have a crypto portfolio without some holdings in Bitcoin. Don't have a portfolio at all without some holdings in Bitcoin. Whether it's 0.5%, 1%, whatever it is, Get some exposure, because if you don't, ultimately, this is not something you've ever seen before. This has a limited fixed supply. There are only 21 billion Bitcoin. That's it, 21 million. Once they're mined, it's done. All you can do is buy from someone else. They're not going to be put into the market. The supply is going to get crunched, as is silver, as is gold, actually, in the coming year to 18 months. You are going to see supply squeezes in those three commodities because they're so heavily purchased right now. Now, gold and silver don't really have a fixed limit. Every time the price of gold goes up, right now, gold mines around the world are raising money and firing up their engines again because the price of gold is now profitable to mine. Silver is basically a byproduct of gold mining anymore. Most of the surface silver around the world has already been extracted. We already have the easy-to-get silver. About 90% of the silver that's produced in the world comes as an extract of gold. So when they refine gold and remove silver and copper, that's where the silver in the market comes from. There is a pretty finite supply, but it's not fixed. There's always going to be more of those commodities. There's never going to be any more Bitcoin. These are the times in history when difficult times are ahead to find things of scarcity and value and hold on to them. This is how everyone made their money in the Great Depression. Absolutely everyone. Before, Roosevelt, who was a communist, signed Executive Order 6102 and basically took everyone's gold. They could easily do that again. They already did it once in this country. They can never take your Bitcoin because they have to have your seed phrase. So if you memorize a seed phrase, you have security in your head for the rest of your life, and it's completely mobile around the world. Watch my Bitcoin video before they pull that down. It's a pretty good explainer of how Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining work. It's much more simple than you realize. Take some time, dig through the videos, find my Bitcoin 101 video. I think it'll help you out to understand that because you certainly need to pay attention. Now, before we get into politics and what's happening around the country in the political sphere, which is absolutely a circus, there is still much pain happening in Western North Carolina. I have many friends out there. I talk to people. I didn't talk to anyone there today, but I talked to someone from that region pretty much every other day of the week. There's no one helping them. There is. So I will tip my cap to Samaritan's Purse. They have put in a tremendous amount of money and effort, and they're a great people. You may not like the organization. You may not like the leaders of the organization, but the people in the organization are working their butts off for those people out there. That is the only organization that I am hearing is helping. Red Cross has left Western North Carolina. That is the report I get from everyone. Now, I'll have Ann Vandersteel in here tomorrow for an interview with her, and she just spent 2 weeks in North Carolina, and after we talk tomorrow, she's flying back to North Carolina. So we're going to get a big breakdown of what's happening in Western North Carolina tomorrow, and hopefully have that up for you by Thursday. But it is nonetheless Governor Cooper of North Carolina, who is a communist, by the way. He is now talking about buying out communities because of climate change. They're calling this climate change. This was a hurricane first. Now it's climate change. You know, we can't use that word weather modification because that's probably going to get me kicked off in here. But it is still suspect to me, very much so, even after having Dr. Frank, who was the head of hurricane research. If you watch that video, I challenged him. Technology has advanced tremendously. Now, do we control the weather around the world 24 hours a day? Probably not. Can we create massive weather events in regions? I believe so, but I don't have proof for that. Nor does anyone have proof on the other side that they can't do it. Nonetheless, the people in Western North Carolina are really hurting right now. And Governor Cooper is just fulfilling another conspiracy theory that he wants to authorize the buyout of full communities. Now, there's a massive lithium deposit underneath Asheville, North Carolina, and you need lithium to make electronic vehicles. At the same time of the hurricane, there was a massive fire in Wyoming, also, very ironically, on top of a very large lithium deposit. So I anticipate within the next week or two, we will hear someone in Wyoming saying, yeah, these people are in pain. Let's buy their houses. Let's buy their houses in Western North Carolina. The purpose is not to help you. It has nothing to do with climate change. It has everything to do with land and resources. There are land grabs happening all throughout the world, in this country, in the Middle East, in Ukraine. These things are all happening. These are all land grabs. You're fed a BS story to buy into and invest your emotions. And what happens in the end is tyrants get more land with your consent. Now, on top of this, there are currently 3 FEMA camps that are set up in Western North Carolina. Not a single FEMA camp has taken in anyone. What they are doing is they're housing FEMA employees. And one of the scarier things is that they're setting up these tornado shelters. Now, I researched on what the use of portable tornado shelters may be. Now, of course, they're used for a cover during a tornado. They're very heavy. They're made out of steel, very strong componentry, and they're soundproof. Now, I have talked to many military folks. I'm not trying to be a fear porn person. I'm just telling you what I hear, and you can do with it as you please. Every military personnel I've talked to in there says these FEMA camps look identical to camps that they would take prisoners in the Middle East. I'm not saying that's happening at all, but that's what they're saying. That's what they're telling me, and I have no rebuttal for that. So take that for what it's worth. What we do know is that these FEMA camps are housing themselves and not the people who just lost their housing. That is a disservice to every American who's ever paid taxes to know that a $20 billion a year funding arm, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, is not doing anything to house people who just lost their housing, but they're housing themselves in these massive camps, 3 of them all around the area. Now, more weather is on the way. I'm not a weatherman by any means, but it is interesting to me. In Omaha, the weather radio is down in Omaha. If you haven't noticed, I can hear it. I don't know if you can hear it right now. The wind is howling in North Texas right now. There is a ton of wind coming through. It's been exceedingly hot here for the last 5 or 6 days, 12, 14 degrees over our norm. It's not unusual, I guess. I mean, depending on what day of the week you're in North Texas, it either feels like Antarctica or the surface of the sun. But generally, it's a much cooler this time of year, and the winds are just howling from here all the way to northern Nebraska into the Dakotas. There is a ton of wind building up, tornado warnings all over the place, and somehow the Omaha weather radio is down. Also, the NOAA in Omaha completely wiped out. So people out there are experiencing conditions that lead to very strong weather, yet there isn't an alert system available for them. So I would appreciate many prayers going out for those who are in the plains all the way down through Texas. We don't know what's coming, especially the people in Nebraska have no idea what's coming. I lived in Nebraska for a year. There's incredibly strong storms that happen there. And the only thing that bails you out if you're driving or planning on doing something is knowing ahead of time that the NOAA and the weather radio are operational, which they're not. And there's no real timeline for them to go back online. So I think this is something that we all need to pray about and make sure that our fellow countrymen, our brothers and sisters in those areas, at least have the cover of prayer over them during these difficult and silent times. I don't know if you heard that, but the wind just banged in the window again. So tremendously high wind out there. But let's get into the election. Guys, oh boy, I don't even know where to go here on YouTube and how to say this delicately. There are many errors and inconsistencies currently in the election process right now that should raise alarms and promote caution moving forward. Is that satisfactory to say that the election's being rigged? I don't know. We'll find out tomorrow. But there are many things that are happening right now that are very much anomalies, and they were anomalies maybe 30 years ago. They're pretty much commonplace for today's presidential and midterm elections. Let's just start with the state of Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. Remember that? The Keystone State. In the Keystone State, a U.S. judge in Pennsylvania just basically stopped an order that will now allow for very laxed rules for overseas mail-in ballots. Now, what was happening is the GOP was trying to pass a bill to make sure that every mail-in ballot coming from overseas had a photocopy of the driver's license of the person associated with the vote. Democrats don't want that to happen. And again, if you're a Democrat or Republican, that's great. They're both wings of the same bird at this point in time. Most of this stuff is theater, and it always has been theater for your future votes. But a U.S. judge in Pennsylvania, basically, I'm going to simplify the lawsuits and stay away from. I don't need to sound like smart, like I'm an attorney. I'm not an attorney. Basically, what just happened is a ruling took place that basically allows mail-in ballots to come in from overseas with no proof of identification of who it's from. That happened in Pennsylvania. That is going to open up a massive window for overseas fraudsters and open up the doors primarily for those who are foreign entities that want to interfere with the U.S. election. By the way, there's an executive order that still stands from Donald Trump that if you do these things, your assets will be seized. So we shall see what happens with that. But nonetheless, the Democrats have gone to a judge, and the judge has said, we don't need an ID for overseas mail-in ballots. So pretty much all of Pakistan's printers are firing up right now. China's printers are probably firing up right now. And you can probably guess which direction those votes are coming in from, and there's absolutely no law to take it. They are shutting down voting in Bucks County. Bucks County, Pennsylvania today had multiple units of police officers, basically emergency response teams. If you watch videos of these guys, I don't buy that they're cops for 1 minute. They look like chubby actors that just left a how do I say this without getting banned, a non-straight bar. Really horrible shape for these cops, very feminine cops. They are now halting voting. So people waiting in line in Bucks County today to vote. I don't care who you're voting for. It's your right to vote. You can vote for Harris. You can vote for Trump. You have every right to do either one of those. I would prefer you vote for Trump because I hate communism and I definitely hate being broke. But if you're voting for anyone, you have every right in the world. As long as you're in line by 4:30, the way the laws are written, by 4:30, you have every right to wait in line until you cast your vote. At 1:30 in the afternoon, police officers showed up on the scenes in Bucks County and basically started shutting down the lines. Whoever was in line at 1:30, that was it. The excuse that they gave was that it's a slow and grueling process. Not that there's anything wrong with saying things are a slow and grueling process, except for the fact that my wife currently, right now, is at a polling station taking in voters. There haven't been any issues there here in Texas. It's not slow. It's not grueling. You come in, you ID someone, you hand them a ballot, you explain how the ballot works. They sit down, they scratch in a few dots on a page, they run it through a computer, and they leave. That's it. Should it run through a computer? Probably not. But you know what happens when that happens? We actually know how many Republican and Democrat votes are already in play. That is something the news is not telling you. They're just telling you voters are registering. There's a dashboard. You can see. I'm not going to tell you how I know, but you can see. So they're shutting down the lines in Bucks County. Democrats are now walking around multiple locations in Pennsylvania wearing lanyards saying that they are part of a voter protection team. Voter protection team. Just walking around with fake badges, claiming to be a voter protection team. Not only is this election interference, this is fraud. This is also fairly satanic. And this is demonic entities walking around making sure that you vote the right way. I will let you know that the last time that this happened, Republicans did this 40 years ago. They were given a 35-year consent decree to never do it again. So there is absolutely some form of regularity in the court system, at least the political arena, that says you cannot walk around with lanyards saying you're voter protection team. This has been done. The Republican Party consented to not do it again for 35 years, and yet these Democrats with voter protection lanyards are walking all over the state right now, pretending to be the hall monitors of voting. It's fascinating. Hundreds and hundreds of ballots have been sent to the wrong address, some multiple times in Pennsylvania. Hundreds of people are reporting that their ballots were sent to the wrong address, and those who got it to the right address are receiving multiple copies. I have personally talked to 3 people in California who've gotten 6, 7, and 5 copies of their own vote registered to their address. The state of California is offering, you want to vote as many times as you like, just do it through the mail. California will let you. It won't matter. It doesn't matter anyway. Republicans never going to win there because in Nevada County, California, 77,000 ballots have been found to be unable to be scanned. This is the vote by mail ballots that are coming in, and the excuse they're giving is that they oversprayed ink on the barcode. Excuses are generally built in. This is printing in 2024. Right across the street here, there was a huge drone display that looks like a fireworks display. These drones flew all over. They made a smiley face. They made a Homer Simpson. If we can conduct miniature drones in a light show to look like Homer Simpson, I'm pretty sure that a regulatory body can verify that every vote wasn't oversprayed with ink. So Nevada County, California, 77,000 of your ballots cannot be scanned. They will probably not be included in the election. If you're one of them, please go back to the voting station and let them know. There are reports coming in from at least 11 states right now of people who have never voted until this year. Some of these people are in their 60s. They've never voted in an election. This election is so important, maybe, that people are voting for the first time. And these people who are voting for the first time are going in online, checking their ballot and finding out that someone voted Democrat for them 12 times, 6 different elections. This stuff is happening. I'm not the breaking news guy. I'm sharing it with you. If you have a friend or relative who says, "Oh, this is going to be the free and fair election," CISA told us a free and fair election. Please watch the interview I did with Joe Hoft, who wrote a book called The Steal about 2020, who works with Trump and the Gateway Pundit. There are cases in 9 states right now ready to go for voter fraud, and they already have standing. These cases will take place. Keep that in mind while I go through this. Hundreds and hundreds of people are recording that there are votes that took place for them in past elections that they've never voted until now. Votes are being flipped in 9 different states, the most prevalent being Virginia at this point in time, back to Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania. The mayor there shut down a Trump rally saying he couldn't cause traffic jams. On my Telegram channel, multiple people live in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and they told us on there, this happens all the time when they have a concert or event or a fair or something. There's always traffic. This is a normal thing, but if it's a Trump rally, you got to shut it down. Pennsylvania is nuts. Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. It gets better, guys. This continues. In Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, buses of illegals are being shipped into voting centers and surpassing those waiting in line. So let me summarize this for you. You're a U.S. citizen. You're taking time off of work, right? So the polling stations are open for about 2 hours after work and an hour before work. So if you're voting at 1:30, 2 o'clock, you're using your lunchtime to go vote, which is your right. Your absolute right as a citizen. You take time off work. You're losing money. A bunch of people show up who don't belong in this country, who are getting free money from your tax dollars. They show up with translators who are paid with your tax dollars and tour guides paid for by your tax dollars. They get to cut in line. They get to vote in the election. And almost all of them are wearing Harris Wall shirts. Put this together in your own head. I'm not going to get kicked off YouTube yet. I have that episode definitely in mind, the one they're going to kick me off for. That's going to happen after the election. But right now, the important thing to understand is all of these inconsistencies are happening in Pennsylvania. And the guy in charge of it, Shapiro, was second in line to be the VP. This is what the left thinks of this nation. These are horrible people. These are tyrants. And they all have one thing in common that'll definitely get me kicked off YouTube today. But Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, clear violation of every law. Everything that you're seeing right now, this is verified and true, all the way down to Miami-Dade. Miami-Dade is now saying that a bunch of ballots are falling off of trucks. They're just falling off of trucks. You know who things fall off trucks for? The mafia. They're the guys who, this just fell off a truck. That's how I got it. That's how the old story, it fell off a truck. Now ballots are falling off of trucks. They're being seen by squad cars with dash cams and actually being put on CNN. It's so bad, CNN is putting it out there, which actually makes me think that CNN is going to set up a narrative as somehow the conservatives or the Republicans in this country are the ones rigging the election. This is going to be hysterical moving forward. It's going to be really frustrating, but it's going to be funny in the end, to me at least. I don't take this election. It's a serious election, but guys, there are so many people who have been fighting in the courts to change the election system. I want to give them all the praise and all the credit that I possibly can. They've been fighting and fighting and fighting. None of it's worked. Our election laws have not changed very much. There definitely have been pockets, counties, towns, municipalities, certain states. But overall, for a 50-state approach, a holistic approach to the U.S. election system, there's really hasn't been much change since 2020. Almost none. So I give all the credit in the world for those people who've been fighting for these changes, but the changes haven't really kicked in. So you can expect more of this and more of this as every day compiles between now and, March 2029 when we finally get done counting the votes. I mean, this is an absolute clown show that we're living in. And the clown show isn't necessarily here. Ireland, the nation of Ireland. I have some Irish blood. I know plenty of people from Ireland. Ireland just passed a hate offense law. So if you misgender someone in Ireland, if you say something mean about another person, you're going to go to jail in Ireland. So these tyrannical rules are not just here, they're happening all over the country. But there are some people who are fighting back in this country, and one of them is Attorney General Andrew Bailey. He collaborated with 25 other states to halt a process put in place by the Democrats. I'm, again, trying to keep this away from legal. I'm trying to keep everything as simple as I can. the right in these 25 states has been trying to remove non-citizens from voter rolls. The left has been trying to keep non-citizens on voter rolls. Pretty simple. Now, there was a rule that basically said, well, we're going to keep the non-citizens, and Attorney General Andrew Bailey put a halt order in place, filed for a halt to stop that, to keep non-citizens off of voter rolls. Voter rolls is a topic only talked about every 4 years for about 4 weeks before an election. It's a huge thing. Some of these rolls are 50, 60 years old with millions of dead people on it. These are really big problems. Now, while all this calamity is happening, there is a big campaign taking place on Reddit right now. Reddit is being manipulated by the left to make, it's called an AstroTurf campaign, and most people aren't familiar with the term AstroTurf. Now, a funny example of AstroTurf is in Chad, when they were having civil unrest during George Floyd. The genius lefties that are supposed to be a threat to this country decided that we're going to be here for weeks, guys. We got to plant some crops, and they tried to plant vegetables on AstroTurf. That's who the other side would be, guys. Just making it simple. But AstroTurfing is a simple process. It's a fake grassroots campaign. It's fake. So there is a fake AstroTurf grassroots campaign that's being exposed on Reddit right now to make Kamala Harris appear more popular than she actually is. And some people will say, well, how could they have done that? Well, if you look on my Telegram channel, you'll find an interview with the head of the American Defamation League, basically telling us that since basically the beginning of Twitter, they've had a social media office in San Francisco, and they now install members of the ADL in every single social media network, including Reddit, to do things exactly like this. So yes, the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, is absolutely colluding with the left, the Democrats in this country, to rig Reddit to make Kamala Harris look more popular than she is. Who is the ADL? What do they stand for? What's their main purpose? Do some digging, find out. They use a term quite often that oftentimes covers up for the truth. Now, on top of this, we're watching Act Blue come to life. Most people have no idea what Act Blue is. Act Blue is a money laundering organization that's been using micro donations from domestic and international entities to pump money into Communist Party, Democrat Party initiatives, activities, campaign activities, advertising. It's how they get their funding. They worked in collusion with FTX and some other places like that who went down. By the way, FTX... There was a whistleblower from FTX that just did an interview with Tucker Carlson. It was about 4 days before he was being sent to, I think, an 8-year jail sentence for fraud with FTX. And he basically said that, yes, he, Sam Bankman-Fried, and a bunch of other executives from FTX went to Donald Trump and offered Donald Trump $5 billion not to run for president in the year 2020. This is how this country really works and the things that really happen. But Act Blue is now being exposed for international campaign money laundering. You are going to find out that Act Blue is one of the largest frauds in the entire country. Yet almost every person who donates to it has an immaculate public perception. They're on television all the time. Their companies are promoted for free on all types of media platforms. They just look like the most brilliant people in the world. And they're so philanthropic. They're stealing money from old people in micro contributions, and they're giving it to Democrats to buy votes, to take over a country, to make you poor, and reduce the amount of actual freedom you have. That's the quick summary. Doug Emhoff, the first gentleman, probably the most feminine term ever used in politics. First gentleman, Doug Emhoff. He is actually trying to get a mezuzah, a Jewish symbol, put on the White House if Kamala Harris wins in a Christian nation. I'm just going to remind you of that. I won't get into that topic again. It'll probably get me removed from that. Continuing on with this, there is a House bill called House Bill 6090. That's 6090. Feel free to go to congress.gov and challenge this conspiracy theory if you'd like. House Bill HB 6090 is labeled as something anti-Semitism. That's all I know that it's labeled. I don't really care to know the title of it. Let me tell you what HB 6090 is intending to do. On top of many other things that restrict free speech and protect certain people, 6090 is trying to ban and remove the sections from the Bible that speak on the fact that the Jews had the Romans kill Jesus. So they're going to ban parts of the Bible, remove pieces of history. Does this sound like 1984? Those who control the past control the present. Those who control the present control the future. They are trying to remove the parts of the Bible, blaming the Jews for the death of Jesus at a congressional level. And this is actually a Republican bill. This wasn't the Democrats. The Republicans are the ones who initiated HB 6090. How could that be? How in the world, in a Christian, supposedly Christian nation, could we be trying to change the Bible? That's heresy, isn't it? I think that we have heretics in office. I don't know, maybe. But how did this happen? Well, you can ask Thomas Massey, who did a brilliant interview on Tucker Carlson, and he explained that he's the only person in Washington, D.C. who doesn't have an AIPAC guy. AIPAC is an Israeli, Jewish political contribution lobbyist. So they are buying politicians. They have purchased every politician in this country. I've said this multiple times on this stream, that go look into this, really do some research. Don't listen to me. Do your own research. About 80% of Congress, of the House of Representatives and the Senate, have dual citizenship with Israel. So Israel, who doesn't believe in Jesus, Jewish people, I'm just not being mean. I'm not being mean. Christian people are pro-Jesus. Jewish people are anti-Jesus. That's just like simple math. So there's a massive influence of Israel upon Congress, and Congress is now trying to ban the parts in the Bible that speak against the fact that the Jews had Jesus killed. That is happening in America. I'm not making this up. These are facts. If I get kicked off for YouTube for this, that should tell you a very large story. But these are facts. These are things that are happening. Not only is freedom of speech, freedom of belief, freedom of faith, freedom, the ability to worship, and to know the truth are all under assault. And this is being led by the Republicans. This is not a Democrat bill. It is certainly endorsed by Democrats, and Democrats are all about it. But this was introduced by Republicans who are all owned by Israel, who right now is bombing everything into oblivion for a land grab. Now, I know you can watch TV, and I know some of you are Christian Zionists that believe that these are the chosen people. That's biblically not true. I could show it to you 1,000 different ways. I do it every day. It's a waste of my time every day, but I want to help save people and get them the truth. But I know you believe that. They are using that as cover to basically annex Lebanon and the Gaza Strip into Israel. It's a plan they've created. It's called the Greater Israel. They want a Greater Israel. And the only way that that's going to happen is with the support of the United States, who they already own. Like, that's kind of where we are, guys. So I was going to go into some things like Israel is not a Christian nation. I don't think anyone doubts that. It's actually 1.9% of the population is Christian. It's actually 19% Muslim in Israel. Very interesting. Very common practice in Jerusalem for Jews to spit on Christians. I know most people won't believe that, but I have video after video and testimony after testimony that it happens. And actually in Israel, if you are preaching the words of Jesus to someone under the age of 18, you will be sent to jail for 2 years. If you speak out against the IDF shooting their own citizens on October 7th, you will also go to jail. If you challenge the Holocaust and the statistics that come from the Holocaust in Israel, you'll also go to jail. That's true in 16 other countries throughout the world, including Germany. So just looking at these things, just throwing out facts for y'all to see, it's always important to figure out who's in charge and what they're trying to do and where they're trying to take us. Because it's overwhelmingly obvious that we have a huge migrant problem here. And I've already gone through that, talking about who really are the main nonprofits and NGOs bringing people from other countries. Here's the way it works. I'll rewind it. In the Middle East, Israel attacks people. They blow up places that creates refugees. Then generally, Jewish-led, there's no way around it, Jewish people lead these organizations that bring those refugees to the United States. And then they give them money and cell phones and all these things. And then all of a sudden, our country has a bunch of people in it from another country who was just bombed by Israel using our weapons, and they hate us. Like, that is the circle of life in the 20th and 21st century, basically since World War II. That has been happening all throughout this country. Now, this creates a lot of gang and cartel problems, because not all gangs come from the South American countries. They come from all over the place, right? There are mafias from every country. Every country has a criminal syndicate, every one of them. And they're sending their members here. Now, Donald Trump just came out and announced another part of his plan that I absolutely 100% endorse, that he is going to be seizing the assets of gangs and cartels in his second term. After he said that, there was a tremendous push online calling him Hitler once again. Eventually, after the election, we'll go through the analogies of Trump and Hitler and allow you to make your own decisions. The analogies of Gaddafi and some of these other people we've been taught were bad people. They were all nationalists who just wanted to be left alone, and they wanted the people in their country to be left alone. That's the simple fact of America. So final point to make here as we get into the religion part, money, politics, religion. I hate the word religion. I think it's terrible. Faith is a better word. The Satanic Temple. Most people don't know that the fastest growing religion in the formal organized religion in America for the last about 15 years has been Satanism. That is the fastest growing religion, organized religion in the United States. And I'm not stuttering my words. I'm not telling you something. Most of you know this, but I'm not making stuff up. You can look at multiple studies. The fastest growing churches are satanic temples. I've told you time and time again on this show that every time an abortion law changes in favor of pro-life, the first lawsuit is always filed by the Satanic Temple. The First Church of Satan, they have multiple names. These Satanists continually file lawsuits to continue abortion, which is not really a medical procedure. It's certainly not healthcare, and it's absolutely not reproductive rights. What it is child sacrifice. So every time a child is ripped apart in the womb of the mother, all of hell rejoices. And that is the truth behind abortion. You can believe that or not believe that. It's absolutely 100% the truth. The Satanic Temple has just built a second satanic abortion clinic. And that's not a misprint. I'm pretty sure. Let me read this again. No, that is word for word what they are saying. It is called the Second Satanic Abortion Clinic. It is becoming more and more obvious that this practice is child sacrifice and that this country is being overwhelmed with demonic possession, demonic entities, demonic thoughts. Halloween's in 2 days. That is literally the devil's holiday. And while that's happening before Halloween, they wanted to make sure they're telling the world, don't worry, guys. You can live a selfish life all you'd like. We just want you to kill God's creation. And now we're going to make it very easy for you to kill God's creation, to continue to serve only yourself. That's what's happening in this country. We use demonic terms for demonic things, and people still don't understand. There is no parenthood class at Planned Parenthood. No one goes to Planned Parenthood to plan to be a parent. They go there to never be a parent. Watch some videos of these guys who perform the abortions. These are wicked people. They have wickedness in their soul. We have so many windows in this country. Sin is prevalent. The most prevalent thing in America is sin. We used to call Las Vegas Sin City because it's all about sin. Drinking, gambling, sex, prostitution, strip clubs, the whole thing. We all fall victim to it in our life, right? We've all been to Las Vegas. We've all done these things. We've all been there. There's a certain point in humanity where we need to wake up and stop dancing with the devil. This country has been dancing hand in hand, cheek to cheek with the devil since before I was born. And it's boiling up to the surface. It is boiling. My brother-in-law got back from New Orleans, from a trip at New Orleans yesterday, and he was telling me about a conversation he had with the people they went on the trip with, who are, not political people, and that's fine. I wasn't either. God, I hated politics. Man, I hated politics most of my life. I also hated being on camera and being on YouTube and doing these things. You just got to do what you got to do to try to serve humanity at the right times. But he was telling me about this other couple they were with on their trip, and they were talking about politics, and they ended up telling him Trump's platform versus Harris' platform, trying to embed some logic for a vote. And he said, we're probably going to vote for Harris. And he said, why? And their answer, by the way, I don't know. I didn't ask him. I don't know if they have a family or not. I don't think they do. But their reason is abortion. You are going to watch just how infiltrated by the devil this country is with actual votes. Now, of course, there'll be make-believe votes and dead people and voter rolls and foreigners and what have you. But you're going to find overwhelmingly that people who actually vote for Kamala Harris don't care about Kamala Harris at all. The only thing that they're voting on, the only stance that she has, the economy is not hers, the wall is not hers, the border, nothing belongs to her. The only thing Democrats have during this election is the right to kill babies, the right to sacrifice and destroy God's creation so that all of hell will rejoice. This is a topic that there are so many topics I want to go through that are so difficult. And I don't know if I can speak openly on this platform. So when we're off of YouTube and on Rumble, this will get a lot more intimate. But there are so many different things in this country that are just overtly demonic. And they're top of mind. They're right on top of someone's mind. Like, there are active voters, many of whom have families. You know, I always remind people when I have an abortion conversation, you're talking to me because you weren't aborted. Like, is your life worth it? Of course your life's worth it. It's your life. That means someone else's life is worth it. The real problem here is not abortion. It's a hedonistic lifestyle. It's the constant bombardment of sex, hedonism, drugs, money, hip hop, the entire influence upon society. This is not happenstance. Did not happen organically. I don't know if they deleted the episode where I talked about what hip hop music, what gangster rap really is. It's a way of demoralizing the youth and getting them to create more crimes to fill the private prisons that are owned by billionaire buddies. It is a business. Every facet of America is infiltrated and corrupted. And not a single politician alive, no matter how powerful they are, is going to change the hearts and minds of men. They can change laws. I think Donald Trump will do an incredible job at reviving this nation back to patriotism, back to hard work, back to understanding that if you work hard, you can actually make it, creating a fair ground. But there's no way in the world any single politician is going to change the wickedness that currently exists in the hearts of Americans. We are the only country in the world, that has abortion as a campaign topic. The only one. I want you to keep that in every other nation. This is not even a topic of conversation. Just in America, with all eyes upon us. The entire eyes of the world are upon the American people. Where America goes, so goes the world. And we're basically telling the world, you know what? We don't care if we have finances. We don't care if our neighborhoods are safe. We don't care if we're eventually bred out and paced out of being able to have a free and fair election by illegals. We don't care if boys use the girls' bathroom. We don't care if boys are in girls' sports and they're killing girls and they're breaking bones. We don't care. We don't care. We just want to kill babies so that we don't have to have children. We don't have to grow up. We can live in this Peter Pan, lost boy society for the rest of our lives. I said in one of my episodes many, many weeks ago, maybe months ago, this is supposed to be a maturing process for the people of God. We are all God's people. God created every single human being on earth, even the human beings that haven't been born. He created every one of us. It doesn't matter if you believe in him or you don't. It doesn't matter if you believe in a different religion, you don't even believe in God. He still created you, and he's giving you a pathway to find his son to save your soul for all eternity. That's the challenge of earth. Earth is a training ground for your soul. It's a testing ground. It's a gigantic test. Can you live by certain holy rules? Can you love others unconditionally? Can you forgive? Can you make people better? Can you give glory to God for the things that happen in your life? And you're seeing that more. You're seeing that more at the end of the World Series games, college football games, NFL games. They're starting to say, I want to thank Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior again. They couldn't say that for 15 years. They were actually cutting off when athletes gave praise to God. Why? Because the world is clearly run by Satanists, or if not Satanists, nihilists and atheists who don't believe in any religion at all. God bless them. I will pray for them because they are going to be lost when the clock runs out on the avatar in this realm that we live in. Trying times. However, what I can tell you is this is a lot of heavy stuff, right? This is heavy stuff. What I can tell you is in my own little church here in Texas, this past weekend, we had 84 people get baptized. About a third were adults, about a third were elders, and about a third were kids. That's 84 people in a small town in Texas. I mean, you can drive through our town without traffic. There's a ton of traffic here because it's growing, but you could drive through our town in about 5 minutes. This is not a big town in Texas. It's growing. It's big. It's getting big. But 84 people at one singular church that's the size of half a little strip mall, 84 people were baptized. One of those on the spot. He just, after baptism, said, the Holy Spirit's calling me. Will you stay late and baptize me on Saturday? People are starting to realize that this world is a dividing line between those who believe and those who do not. And as the body of Christ and a member of that kingdom, I preach to each and every one of you tonight to go home, if you're at home watching this, to get on your knees later tonight and pray for those lost souls who are willfully granting consent to the demons that run this world, who are willfully surrendering their rights to demonic entities for the luxury of not having to raise a child. The birth rate in this nation is approaching 0. That's by design. Everything has been designed to control the population, whether it's the chemicals in your food, whether it's the vices that are given to you, drugs, alcohol, these other things that shorten your lifespan, sedentary lifestyle, staring at screens, just growing fat and weak. Whether it's the promotion of gay lifestyles, because gay people can't have babies. I hate to tell you, so the more gay people we have, the less babies we have. I know that that is a total conspiracy theory in today's world, but 2 men can't have a baby and 2 women cannot have a baby. They can't make the baby. They can certainly both have the baby. Two gay women, I guess, actually could produce more babies than men if they had a donor, but they don't. Some of them do. And we have this entire, hookup lifestyle that's being, pushed upon our children. Music, all the music, got to have a lot of girlfriends, sleep around, do these things. That causes unwanted children who end up being aborted. The left, through this process of depopulation, self-inflicted depopulation, they're not going around and shooting you. They're just convincing you not to have children, and they're making the economy less strong. They're deflating your dollar. They're inflating your dollar. They're reducing your buying power, making it more expensive to have kids. My wife and I talked not too long ago. The only regret I have in life is not having more children. When my children were young, I lived in Los Angeles. I couldn't afford to have another kid. I wish I would have. We're a dying species. We're an endangered species, humanity. And right now we're being led into this, but we are finding more and more people finding faith. Friends of mine in many areas are just now having another kid in their 30s. They're having another kid in their early 40s. Things are changing in this world, but I want you to tonight, before I wrap up this episode, I want you to go into a private place, get in stillness and silence and solitude, and pray for those people who are voting Democrat for the sole reason of abortion. It's saddening. It's saddening, to be honest with you, and those souls are lost. Of course, many of them are atheists. Atheism, by the way, is a relatively new thing throughout history, a couple hundred years old, not very old. Started around the same time as dispensationalism, if you know what that is. Dispensationalism, new views in the Bible, different way to interpret it. It doesn't make sense. Don't believe in anything. Read satanic manuals. Read the occult. They love atheists. Atheists are absolutely the plaything of the devil, those who believe in nothing. Pray for them to find something in their life that leads them to search that there is a creator who made them, who loves them, and that he will be there for them. All they have to do is call upon him. So that's how I want to wrap it up here tonight. We are in the midst of political unrest, civil unrest. I'm going to wrap it up actually with what happens next. So let's game theory this out a little bit, right? So right now, I would say that we are definitely on track, if not way ahead of schedule, for the 2020 election debacle that we saw. We already have 4 different places, Maricopa County, some other places, that are already saying, whoa, there's so much early voting and so many mail-in ballots, we're not going to be able to count this for 10 or 12 days. That's basically a way of saying we need to count this really quickly to figure out how many more ballots we need to create to counteract the votes that have come in. I don't expect an announcement of a president for at least 10 days after the election. I fully anticipate that after that 10 days is over, I fully anticipate them to tell us that Kamala Harris just squeaked it out in all of the battleground states. I fully expect that. Now, if it doesn't happen, that's awesome. Like, I'm not saying, I hope I'm wrong way more than I hope I'm right. And I think that's something people confuse with me, because I make predictions in my personal life and on camera, and I actually hope I'm wrong way more than I hope I'm right. And I hope I'm wrong here. But I fully expect them to say that she squeaked by a couple thousand votes here or there, just like last election. As I said, Joe Hoff told us there are 9 cases in 9 different states already sitting there withstanding to challenge this stuff. So if Harris wins, the GOP will challenge lots of elections withstanding. So that'll be good. We'll get disclosure. We'll get discovery. We'll see things this time. On the other hand, if Trump is announced as winner, the same thing's going to happen, like the same thing. So I actually don't anticipate the inauguration date being January 20th. I think there's definitely going to be an election. I know I keep hearing today that cyber attack, power outage, it could certainly happen. I can't predict that. That's totally unpredictable. And it may happen. I don't discount any theory at this point in time. There's not a single theory. You shouldn't scoff at any theory out there. You should find one that makes sense to you based on the actual factual information you have. But all theories are relevant in a situation like this. I do think the most interesting time in U.S. history is definitely going to be from the election to January. You have to look at it from a different perspective than you normally would. There's evil people who run the country. That's one of the happiest times of the year is Thanksgiving and Christmas. Of course, they're going to try to destroy that as best they can with more political stuff and more political ads. You're going to be hit up for money even more because now there's going to be lawsuits. No matter who wins, you're going to get more text messages asking for money to pay for lawyers for all this stuff that our government should pay for. Our government should have a free and fair election process that's free to do to be able to actually exercise your right to a free and fair election. You are going to see something happen with there are just simply too many migrants. I live in Texas. I see them everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, there's somebody who doesn't speak English. And it wasn't like that 4 years ago. 4 years ago, you were like, wow, a foreigner was like someone from Texas or from California or New York or New Jersey or Illinois. Now the foreigners are actual foreigners. And they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. There's no way in the world that doesn't boil over in the next couple of months because it would make a great news story and a great way to distract you from discovery happening in election fraud cases. There are going to be election fraud cases that are going to chew up the legal system for the next 3 or 4 months. It doesn't even matter who wins. And we're going to see civil unrest, in my humble opinion, and it doesn't matter who wins. It's going to be the same people, too, by the way. It's just a matter of which uniform they wear. Do they wear the conservative red hat or do they wear the Antifa mask? That's the only thing. They're already set in place. These people are funded by foreigners. Foreigners control this land. They control this country. Israel controls all of Congress, all of it. And now we're talking about putting Israeli symbols on the White House. This is just the state of affairs in America. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to promote hate in any way. I'm trying to promote the truth. And if the truth is offensive to you, that's not my problem. That's yours. The truth is the truth. I made a commitment to God to tell the truth, and I don't care who makes fun of me, who yells at me, who blasts me online. It doesn't matter. You're not fazing me. I see you every day. I never ignore your comments either. Never ignore you. Because I want to save you. I want to bring you back into the truth. And the truth is so obvious at this point in time. It's so obvious who's infiltrating this country, and yet we cheer for our own captor. All the time. We do it all the time. So I expect this next few months to be, number one, maybe the most unparalleled constitutional crisis of any nation in the history of the world. This is a friend of mine, David, said today, he goes, well, this must be constitutional crisis number 17 coming up. And he's right. We've been living in a constitutional crisis. There's still nothing was settled in 2020 except for the fact the president has no standing in court. That was the only thing that was settled. Somebody else reminded me that Kamala Harris is the deciding vote whether or not the election is certified, and she actually doesn't have a choice. If Trump wins, she has to certify it. The Democrats changed that law last election. So there is no don't certify and send it back if Trump wins. Trump just simply can't win so that they can certify it. That's the objective of the other side. We have a migrant issue. We have a crime issue. We have defunded police. We have unfunded police. We have police departments, 2 places, one in Wisconsin, one in Minnesota, completely got rid of their police force because they have no money and they can't recruit anyone to work for a place that has no respect. I don't expect the next 3 or 4 months in this country to be puppy dogs and rainbows. I expect it to be very difficult. I expect it to be a trying time for Americans. I also expect it to be maybe the most difficult time in the history of North Carolina because they already have nothing. People talk about EMPs and, power outages, all on the table. It's all on the table. From a logical perspective, the thing I can tell you is that what I've talked about, I can foresee happening easily. Civil unrest, migrant revolt, constitutional crisis, courts jammed up, the media constantly pumping propaganda on whatever side it is. It doesn't matter. There's plenty of people on the right that are propaganda too. That's why independence is an important thing. Not belonging to a party, not being beholden to a party allows you to speak the truth unimpeded. I don't have a party. I don't have a gang. I don't have a group. I don't have a crew. I'll say whatever I want. because that is the truth. I'm going to say that whether it hurts people like me or not. We have to have these tough conversations and get through this difficult time. What's happening in America has to happen in America. It is going to happen in America because God guides all, and God is going to guide us in the right direction, and we are going to have to walk through hell to get to heaven. That is what's going to happen. Now, on the flip side, once this is all over, possibly by mid to late 2025, we'll see massive change in this country, one way or the other. Massive change. Either it's going to be the best of times or the worst of times, like the old novel. So you can sit around and daydream and hypothesize and theorize about what's coming all you like, or you can prepare. Preparation is far better than prediction. Get your house in order. Get your spiritual house in order. Get good with God. Get right with your family. Your family loves you. God loves you. Tell them you love them back. Get the spirit of love, get the spirit of God going through your house, through your soul, through your mind, through your body, and share it with other people. That is what will conquer all. Will there be violence? I don't know. Probably. Will there be unrest? Absolutely. It's already happening. It's already brewing. You have police that are now pushing back on people who are peacefully voting in an election. Things are going to get sticky, but you don't have to be. Things are going to get very hairy and very chaotic and hectic. You don't have to be that way. Ground yourself in faith, get your body in order, get some exercise, get a good diet going, eat real food, exercise, get outside, get some sun, prepare your soul. You don't know where God's going to call you in this coming season. No one does. But if you're prepared for any calling that he gives you, you'll be able to serve the kingdom. You'll be able to serve your country and serve your family in the right way because our priorities are out of line. God, family, country. It's a very simple model I teach in my home. God, family, country. Everything else comes after that. Our country's in trouble. Our families are in trouble because we've forgotten God. So reverse the order. Get good with God, bring God into your family, serve your nation in a godly way. That's all I've got for you today on the Rice Report. I love you all. God bless every one of you. God bless this nation. And we will see you next time here on the Rice Report. Have a great night, everyone. I hope to see you soon.